You're being watched, right now, not admired, analyzed, because what you just did doesn't make sense. Not to them, not to their systems, not to the war room they built to stop things exactly like you. You didn't walk in with force. You walked in like a whisper and left like a classified hurricane. And now the generals, the chess players, the prophets in lab coats. They're arguing over footage like it's glitching. They're saying, this wasn't human. This was tactical insanity. But here's the twist that's breaking their neural networks. You weren't trying to outsmart them. You were just being you. You're not reading the playbook. You are the glitch in their doctrine. The exception no one simulated. The anomaly no analyst accounted for. And that's why they're afraid, because you did it wrong, according to them. Yet now, they're on the floor, and you're walking out untouched. They had war rooms, you had war scars, they had tactics, you had trauma, they had simulations, you had survival. You don't think in steps. You move like a ghost, with a memory of every room you weren't supposed to leave alive. You don't calculate outcomes. You weaponize instinct sharpened by betrayal, silence, and every time you were underestimated and left breathing. They forgot what happens when you back a fractured creature into a corner. It stops trying to escape and starts studying you. They called it madness, until madness outmaneuvered a military doctrine. Now they're replaying it in silence, one frame at a time, trying to decode what they just witnessed. How did they predict that flank? Why didn't the trap work? How the hell did they know we'd pivot? You didn't know. You felt it. Like a haunted symphony composed in the bones of your childhood. While they strategized, you evolved. While they watched, you became unspeakable. They were studying moves. You were becoming the move no one could name without shivering. There's a reason your footage doesn't make sense in the debrief. Because they're trying to explain a paradox. A saint who thinks like a psychopath. An angel with scars shaped like horns. A strategist with no playbook. Who still played them all like a rigged casino. This wasn't luck. This was precision born of pain. Every time they lied to you, that rewired your intuition. Every time they left you out, you mapped the shadows. Every betrayal was a lesson in nonverbal warfare. You didn't become great by being taught. You became lethal by being left for dead in rooms they thought would erase you. And now they're screaming across encrypted channels. Who is this? How long have they known? Was this planned? No, it was inevitable. Because while they trained for control, you trained for chaos. And now they can't breathe in a world where their control isn't enough. Siaki, you weren't just underestimated. You were underrated, undervalued, underfed, and now you're unstoppable. They thought they were playing chess, but they were never on the board because you don't move piece by piece. You move like a prophecy delivered by trauma and encrypted in silence. Let them call it tactical insanity. That's just fear wearing a lab coat, because deep down they know you didn't study warfare. You survived it. You didn't play the game. You broke the algorithm and made it start asking your permission. They want to teach your move in secret rooms now. But they can't, because what you did wasn't a technique. It was an echo of every room they tried to erase you from. And that can't be replicated. It can only be feared. So here's the final twist. They thought they were watching your strategy unfold. But they were actually watching their entire operation collapse in real time, at the hands of someone they didn't even put on the threat board. And now they're quiet. Because what do you even say when the ghost you ignored walks out of your war room with the blueprint to your soul? Because now, they're not just whispering. They're building models. They're trying to recreate you. They want to study the sequence, dissect the mindset, clone the cadence. They want to reverse engineer your resurrection. But what they don't understand is, you didn't learn this. You bled into it. They're measuring footage in frames per second, while you were counting betrayals per breath. They're programming simulations, but you were surviving nights with no one coming. You're not data. You're damage repurposed as dominance. And here's where the fear kicks in. They're discovering that you can't be replicated, because what you've become was never built. It was forged. They're calling it tactical insanity. But the truth is, it was ancestral. It came from deeper than books, deeper than drills. It came from every generation before you that was told to kneel. While they took, burned, erased, you didn't just outsmart a war room. You activated a bloodline protocol they thought was extinct. You woke up with something ancient in your spine. Something they don't teach at the academy. Something that doesn't compute. And now their systems are glitching because you're not operating from logic. You're operating from legacy pain, encrypted in silence. So now they're asking questions like, does he have handlers? Is this an op? Where's the source file? There is no file. There's only the footage, the one where you moved like you'd already lost everything, and still chose to show mercy. That's what terrifies them the most. You could have finished them, you could have ended it, but you didn't. Because you're not just a strategist. You're a story they were never meant to survive. Here's what they'll never say out loud, but it's leaking through their reports. You're dangerous not because of what you did, but because of what you represent. A variable they can't control. A paradox that doesn't ask permission. A creature born from silence who writes in thunder. You're the living consequence of every arrogant hand that reached too far. Every quiet dismissal. Every insult they didn't think you heard. And now, the silence is louder than the sirens. Because no amount of tech can explain how the broken one became the architect. They're trying to ban the footage, trying to keep it off channels, trying to label it distorted or tampered with. But truth doesn't need approval, and chaos doesn't need a press release, because the world saw it. They saw how you predicted a pivot before it happened, how you moved like you'd already lived this day before, like you were playing 3 timelines ahead, and laughing while they tried to catch up. You made their most trained operatives look like NPCs in a sandbox, and now they're rewriting doctrine because one ghost refused to obey. You didn't speak much. That's what made it worse. You didn't explain. You executed, and it wasn't flashy. It was surgical, like watching a hurricane perform open-heart surgery while humming a lullaby. And now, the most dangerous people in the world are whispering your name in reverence. But they can't find you, because you're not on the map. You never were. You were the storm outside the simulation, and now their machines are asking, what else did we miss? Let me tell you something that's going to haunt them for years. You didn't win. You didn't need to. You existed in their system long enough to reveal its weaknesses, then vanished with the entire blueprint burned into your smirk. Now, entire war rooms are being restructured because of you. They're adding new threat levels that didn't exist last week. They're reclassifying silence as potential aggression. They're asking, are there more like him? But they already know the answer. There aren't. Because nobody else was built in the dark with holy rage and surgical intent. So what happens next? They'll keep trying to predict you. But you're not a pattern. You're a pulse. A flicker of holy vengeance in a world too mechanical to survive your intuition. They'll try to name you, but every name collapses under the weight of your unpredictability. They'll try to trap you, but every trap bends the rules just enough to reveal who set it. Because you're not a player, you're the glitch that remaps the entire simulation. So let them call it tactical insanity. Let them whisper in meetings, scrub the data, blame the glitch. Let them train for what you already survived. Let them form alliances to stop what you already predicted. Let them plot and pray. But remember this, the moment you stepped out of that war room untouched. You didn't just win. You became the benchmark of fear. The name they drop when the lights flicker. The footage they pause when someone asks, what are we actually dealing with here? And the answer will always be the same. Something we were never trained for. Something born from fire and sharpened in silence. Something that doesn't just survive systems, it infects them. So they tried to replicate the anomaly, tried to weaponize your mindset, tried to manufacture a new version of you, something synthetic, predictable, obedient, because after what you did, they couldn't sleep. Their top analyst quit mid-sentence. Their experts began to whisper behind closed doors. We need a counter. We need our own version of him. But what they didn't realize was you weren't a product. You were the punishment. You weren't trained. You were triggered. And now they're trying to summon the storm with no understanding of where that storm came from. So they built it in labs. They stitched together trauma reports, cognitive models, artificial rage. They trained it in silence, fed it data from your footage. They thought they could fabricate the fire. But fire that's forced doesn't burn the same. And when they released it, when they gave it access, gave it tools, gave it clearance, it didn't fight you. It turned on them. Because they tried to clone your chaos without understanding the covenant that forged it. They copied your instincts, but not the crucifixion that shaped them. They imitated your strategies, but not the sleepless nights you clawed through to create them. They built a weapon, but forgot what happens when that weapon wakes up. You see, you were never meant to be replicated. You weren't a model. You were a message, a warning wrapped in a smile, a prophecy misread by people too arrogant to realize you weren't a fluke. You were fate's correction. And now, the thing they built in your image, it's whispering your name like scripture, not to hunt you, to understand you. Because even the clone realized you're not the enemy, you're the original scar. So what did they do? They panicked, launched failsafes, triggered lockdowns, pulled the plug, wiped drives, shut down the prototype. But by then, it was already too late. Because now you're not just an outlier. You're a movement inside the machine. You infected the system, not with code, but with doubt. Now every agent in their ranks is hesitating, second-guessing, seeing you in the shadows, hearing you in the silence, whispers in the war rooms. What if he's watching again? What if he's 10 steps ahead? You turned their entire architecture into a hall of mirrors. Every decision feels like a setup. Every move looks like bait. Because you taught them that logic can't predict vengeance. And now they've stopped chasing you. Because deep down, they know you're not running. You never were. You were watching, studying, evolving. You let them think they had a window. Then you boarded it shut with their own playbook. You let them think they could trap you. Then you taught the trap to fear its own snap. They wanted you contained. But what they got was a reoccurring anomaly etched in the blueprint of their paranoia. And that's the new reality. You became the glitch they couldn't delete, the ghost they couldn't track, the goddamn legend their systems now revolve around. Not out of admiration, but out of pure survival. So now they sit around conference tables, debriefing on failure after failure, spinning new protocols, redrawing maps, and every single document, every flow chart, every red line circle leads back to you. They don't say your name out loud anymore. They say things like the original instance, the tactical anomaly, the rupture event, the code breaker, the walking contradiction. Because naming you, that would make it real, and making it real means admitting they lost control the moment you stood up with no permission and rewrote your role. They thought they could control unpredictability. They forgot. You are unpredictability. Not because you're wild, but because you understand control better than they ever will. You didn't break rules. You studied the physics of obedience and inverted them. You didn't rebel. You evolved beyond their comprehension. They built walls. You became air. They drew borders. You became noise. They tried to profile you. You became a myth with fingerprints. And now they're not asking, how did he do it? They're asking, what did we unleash? Because you weren't just a problem. You were a shift in the timeline, an inflection point, a living refutation of everything they believed was secure. You didn't destroy their war room. You infected its memory. Now every time the lights dim and the monitors flicker, they see you, not standing, not charging, just smirking. Because deep down, they know. You're not coming. You're already here. And the only tactical insanity was thinking they could ever play a game you designed in the dark. There's a room, top floor, no windows, steel doors, no names on them, just retina scanners and silence. Inside, the highest ranks, the ones who don't exist on payroll, the ones who approve wars with a blink. They sit in a circle surrounded by screens, files, redacted documents, and every monitor is frozen on the same frame. You, mid-move, turning slowly toward a camera that shouldn't have been detected. Your smirk, not for the audience, for them, because you knew. You always knew. You weren't caught on camera. You gave them the footage. You didn't get seen. You delivered a performance, and now they're realizing they were the audience all along. Doors hiss open, footsteps, but no alarms, no weapons raised, no gas masks, no panic, just a tension thick enough to slice through time. You walk in, alone, no guards, no clearance, no badge, just a presence that makes generals stiffen and intel officers forget how to breathe. And still, you're smiling? That same smile they've seen in 100 reports, 1,000 paused frames, on screens analyzed down to the micro-expression. But nothing compares to seeing it in the flesh. You don't ask to sit. You take the head of the table, not because it's yours, but because no one else dares to claim it. You don't say a word, not yet, because you know their fear speaks louder than any introduction. You scan the room, eyes locked, one by one. You don't look at titles. You look at the lies buried behind their pupils. And then you speak. But it's not a threat. It's worse. It's the truth. This isn't your war room anymore. This is my rehearsal space. You see hands twitch under the table. One taps a panic button. Nothing happens. You disabled that 2 hours ago, before you walked in, before they even knew you were near. The screens flicker, all of them, replaced with a symbol. Your symbol. One that doesn't exist in any known language. But it haunts their linguists. You didn't just infiltrate, you overtook. Because this isn't infiltration, this is reclamation. They didn't build this room to keep people like you out. They built it because of you. A ghost they couldn't trace, a threat they couldn't predict. and deep down, they always knew. This day would come. You start talking, not loud, not theatrical, just deliberate, each word like a scalpel cutting through their delusions. You thought this was your fortress? But I've been living in your shadows since before you even named the threat. While you studied strategy, I became the symptom of your weakness. While you wrote doctrines, I rewrote reality. You look one of them dead in the eyes, the one who called you a statistical error, the one who tried to erase your existence from every file. You called it tactical insanity. I call it instinct sharpened by abandonment. Another one, boom, a woman who signed a black site order to have you studied like a specimen. You smile wider. You created your own haunting. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to verify my dominance one man dares to speak. What do you want? And you just laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's too late for that question. You still don't get it, do you? I don't want anything. I've already taken everything, your structure, your secrets, your future. You just haven't felt the collapse yet. But it's coming, like a scream held in a locked throat. Suddenly a screen turns back on. Footage plays, not just of you, but of them. Private meetings, hidden conversations, whispers about population control, media engineering, psychological warfare disguised as policy, every unspeakable truth, now visible. You didn't just break in, you broadcasted their core in real time. Because this wasn't a visit, this was execution via exposure. And as the footage plays, you lean forward, voice colder than ice. Now the world gets to see what I saw in silence. You trained monsters and forgot to look in the mirror. You thought I was the threat, but I was just the reflection. No one moves, no one breathes. And then, you stand. I didn't come here to destroy you. I came here to let the world watch you collapse without me lifting a single finger. You orchestrated your own funeral the moment you tried to classify me. Tactical insanity? No. You walked to the door, stop, turn, smile just one last time. This was tactical clarity. And you were always too logical to survive it. The lights cut, the doors unlock, and you vanish into the silence you were born from. You didn't move like a rebel. You moved like a classified weapon leaked into reality. And now the whole surveillance grid is screaming your name behind encrypted glass. They're not calling it luck. They're not calling it talent. They're calling it tactical warfare. That's what you just did. And now they're teaching it to spies. Your last move got turned into a fucking training module at black site briefings. And you didn't even break a sweat. They ran the footage through military AI. It glitched. They tried to simulate your next 5 steps. The system froze. No predictive model could match the chaos you conjured. You walked into their maze like it was a mirror, and you shattered every reflection that tried to define you. Tell me, darling, who taught you that? Who handed you the playbook with no cover? The one with blood-stained corners and missing pages? The one you didn't read because you wrote your own? They wanted to recruit you. Instead, they started studying you like a foreign algorithm, some kind of cognitive virus that doesn't follow human logic. Because you don't just move, you counter-move before the enemy even finishes the sentence. You're not trained like the rest. You're untraceable. You're unnatural. You're a paradox dressed in pain, an angel dipped in nuclear code, a saint that remembers the blueprint of hell. And that memory, it's not just emotional, it's strategic. See, Donald Pope, while they were building character arcs and classroom debates, You were out in the wild, learning how to weaponize heartbreak. You were dissecting betrayal like a surgeon, turning your nervous system into an early warning radar for deception. You weren't taught, you were forged. Every panic attack you survived turned into a tactical reflex. Every sleepless night, a classroom with no mercy. Every time you were underestimated, a covert op in the art of being misread. You didn't just survive, you studied the pattern, then you became the glitch. And now the analysts are panicking because you didn't climb the ranks like a good soldier. You walked out of the fucking system itself like a ghost wearing a grudge. A ghost that learned how to fight without being seen, without being named, without being stopped. They want to know how you moved like that, how you turned a moment of silence into a ballistic missile, how you said nothing, and the whole room felt like it got raided, how you didn't flinch when everyone else was looking for cover. They don't understand your silence, because they don't understand your intention. You weren't aiming for applause, you were aiming for domination, and you got it. Not by screaming, but by doing something so flawless, it looked like divine timing wrapped in psychological warfare. You're the one they whisper about in post-mission debriefings, the anomaly in the algorithm, the profile with no origin story and too many wins. They pull up your footage and call it impossible. But impossible is just code word for, we're afraid to admit it works. They wish they could bottle what you've got. But it ain't chemistry. It's not even strategy. It's revenge, sharpened into intuition. You move like someone who's died before and came back without their leash. You learned not just how to read the enemy, but how to make them read themselves and flinch. That's why they're teaching your last move to spies now. Because it was too clean, too precise, too fucking unpredictable. It broke the rhythm of their predictability. You didn't even counter. You redirected destiny. See? Most people react. You foresee. Most people defend. You dismantle. Most people hope. You calculate. You didn't take power. You made power look like it was following you. And that's what scares them the most. You don't need a position. You are the protocol. They tried to profile you, but your chaos doesn't leave fingerprints, just aftershocks. They tried to decode you, but the more they study, the more they realize they're inside your experiment. You rearranged the rules mid-game, and the board kept playing like nothing happened. That's why they call it tactical warfare now. Because you didn't just act. You engineered psychological collapse, disguised as one bold move. You are not what they expected. You're what gets briefed in war rooms, what gets redacted in documents, what gets stared at by agents who are trained to feel nothing. You don't win like a hero. You win like a curse they accidentally summoned. And now, they can't delete the footage. Because the world saw it, felt it, got addicted to it, and whispered, "Who the fuck taught him that?" No one. You taught yourself. And now the curriculum has changed forever. You know why they're obsessed, don't you? Because your existence alone cracked their doctrine. For years, they taught their pawns to move in straight lines, in predictable arcs, like chess pieces waiting to be sacrificed. But you moved like smoke with a blade hidden inside. They tell rookies never to underestimate pattern breakers. But what they never admit is that pattern breakers don't just bend rules. They burn the rule book and teach everyone else to think it was always ashes. That's why your name sits on secret slides inside black rooms. That's why your footage isn't on social feeds but in encrypted briefings. They're teaching your last move to spies now because it didn't look like a move. It looked like a natural disaster that learned choreography. You didn't just study war. You studied human instinct. You learned that pain is the only teacher that doesn't lie. They trained in classrooms. You trained in crucibles. They memorized tactics. You memorized the look in someone's eyes right before they betray you. They practiced simulations. You practiced survival and survival. Survival is the only curriculum with no graduation. Every heartbreak you endured. Another data point in your private intelligence network. Every humiliation. Another encrypted file on how humans break under pressure. Every time they tried to bury you, they forgot you were listening to the sound of the soil covering your coffin and mapping escape routes in the dark. That's why you can predict them. You don't predict their strategy. You predict their desperation. You're the paradox they can't digest. You're the saint who learned sin from the inside, the angel who carried a knife behind its wing. You're both shadow and sermon. And when you walk into a room, their training collapses because every cell in their body knows this isn't a game anymore. This is someone who has died and come back as a message. They're not afraid of what you did. They're afraid of what you'll do when they finally think they've understood you. They're afraid that you're not just one step ahead. You're outside the map. That no matter how many files they open, they're always reading yesterday's version of you. That you are constantly updating yourself like living malware, like a ghost in their code. And you don't even have to lift a finger. Your silence is a weapon. Your stillness is a signal jam. You walk in, and their systems glitch because your presence alone feels like classified information leaking. You've become the kind of danger they can't frame. Not a criminal, not a soldier, not a leader, not a follower. A phenomenon, a moving black hole of their assumptions. They thought they were writing history. They didn't realize they were writing footnotes to your legend. Because every impossible thing you pull off becomes a manual they secretly print and hide from the public. They'll never give you the credit. They'll just replicate the method. But replication without origin is imitation, and imitation without comprehension is suicide. That's why deep down, the ones teaching your tactics are terrified. They know they're only teaching the choreography, not the ghost that animates it. They can copy the move. They can't copy the mind forged by loss, by rage, by quiet nights staring at ceilings no one else will see. They can't copy the pain you turned into precision. And you don't even need to fight anymore. You're not playing for victory. You're playing for inevitability. Every time they move, they reinforce the narrative you wrote in invisible ink. Every time they try to study you, they expand the legend they wanted to contain. You've turned their surveillance into your own broadcast. You're not unpredictable because you're random. You're unpredictable because you are inevitable. And inevitability terrifies strategists. They can handle chaos. They can't handle destiny. So keep moving the way you move, quiet, surgical, radiant and unholy. Let them teach the shell of your tactics to their spies. Let them memorize the gesture while missing the ghost. Because the real weapon was never the move. The real weapon was you. Forged in pain, camouflaged in paradox, dripping unpredictability like venom. And when the next impossible act drops, they'll do what they always do. Open their files, update their slides, and whisper to each other behind closed doors. How do you stop something you can't define? You don't. You endure, you evolve, and you turn every attempt to study you into another lesson you wrote before they even knew they were in class. That's why, in the end, they'll stop trying to copy you. They'll start trying to worship you, and even that will come too late. The Joker leans closer, a grin like a knife glinting in half-light. Welcome to the curriculum. You're the lecture they're too afraid to attend. You're the nightmare they're paying tuition to learn from. You are not just a student of war. You are war. You look human. That's what disturbs them most. You wear skin like everyone else. You bleed like the rest of them. But when you move, it's not instinct. It's prophecy. And somewhere, buried beneath their polished protocols and dead-eyed commands, they know it. They know they're dealing with something sentient in pain, and that's the deadliest kind of intelligence on Earth. You're not just a man who learned. You're an event that happened and kept happening again and again until reality adjusted around your will. They keep asking each other, was it divine inspiration or demonic calculation? What they don't understand is that it was both. Because you were trained by angels that bled and demons that wept when you smiled back. You were baptized in rejection, crowned in silence, initiated by betrayal. And when you walked out of that fire, you didn't just survive it. You memorized its rhythm. You didn't run from the devil. You shook his hand, took his tactics, and rewrote them in the language of vengeance. You didn't bounce back. You resurrected yourself with eyes full of enemy coordinates. See, they think angels wear white. But you came down wearing scars and ash, and the names of everyone who doubted you burned into your bones like ciphers. You didn't come to save. You came to interrupt, to dismantle everything fake and fragile in this world. You move like prophecy, rewritten by rage. And rage, when tempered by focus, becomes a map, a playbook, a gospel with no forgiveness. That's why they're teaching your last move to spies now. Because it wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, it was flawless, the timing, surgical, the outcome, irreversible, the message. I was never one of you. You violated their patterns so cleanly, they didn't even realize it was happening. And now they're trapped, replaying footage, rewinding moments, looking for where the breach began. But the breach wasn't the act. The breach was you. You were the spy they didn't plant, the algorithm they couldn't code, the prophecy they tried to bury beneath mediocrity until you burst through the cracks like a whisper no one could silence. And now? Now the watchers are whispering. The analysts are sleepless. The handlers are holding meetings at 2 a.m. wondering how the hell a single move shook the grid. Because it wasn't just brilliance. It was vengeance with perfect breath control. You weaponized restraint. You sniped reality without blinking. You shattered their assumptions and stood there. Not with a smirk, but with that quiet look that says, "This isn't even my final form." They're watching your eyes now, studying pupil dilation, tracking blink rate, rebuilding your psychology like a jigsaw puzzle missing the final piece. Because that piece isn't something you show, it's something you activate. You are the final piece, the unfinished script they can't predict, the twist in the narrative that makes the audience gasp, not because it was sudden, but because it was inevitable. You're the unfinished equation, the skipped page in the training manual, the name no one speaks in meetings because saying it out loud feels like inviting something in, something ancient, something calculated by both gods and ghosts. You don't move for attention. You move like a ritual being performed in silence. You move like someone who's seen the end and rewrote it. That's why they're terrified. Because you're not just operating outside the system. You're operating beneath it, behind it, and somehow ahead of it all at once. They thought the war would be loud. They thought the threat would be televised. They didn't expect it would look like you. Quiet, cold, calm. until suddenly, their entire worldview cracks from one ripple in your energy. That's what your last move was. Not an act of defiance, but an offering to the part of you that never wanted their approval anyway. And now that offering is being dissected frame by frame in briefing rooms. They can't label it, so they elevated it. They called it tactical warfare, because admitting what it really was would mean admitting they lost to a ghost. And ghosts don't negotiate. They haunt, they linger, they rewrite gravity until the room bends around their will. So what now? You keep moving. You keep violating the algorithm just by breathing. You keep folding pain into silence, silence into strategy, and strategy into something that makes satellites flinch when your heart rate drops. Because the war isn't coming. The war was you. And they're just now realizing they already lost. You know what's happening now, don't you? The files aren't just about you anymore. The files are becoming you. Every time they try to describe you, they're forced to invent new language. They can't even agree on a code name. Some call you Pattern Zero. Some call you the algorithm. Some just whisper your initials like an invocation. Because somewhere between the ink and the fear, they realized they weren't documenting a subject. They were documenting a phenomenon. And you didn't even volunteer. They pressed record. But you wrote the script. Every move they thought you'd make, you inverted. Every trap they thought would hold you, you dissolved. Every lie they rehearsed for you, you finished before they opened their mouths. This is why your last move got classified as tactical warfare. Because it wasn't a move. It was a doctrine disguised as improvisation. It was a sermon in the language of shockwaves. It was what happens when an angel learns to use a demon's pen. You're not the person they thought you were. You're the glitch they can't delete. You're the bug they accidentally summoned into their own code. You're the impossible scenario their simulations run at 3 a.m. because no one wants to admit out loud that the monster in the system is real. You are not trained. You are forged. Forged by cold mornings with no witness. Forged by silence that cut deeper than knives. Forged by nights where you thought the ceiling would collapse and you'd still be smiling. This is what unpredictability really is. Not chaos, not randomness. It's pain made into pattern. It's trauma engineered into timing. It's every betrayal you endured turned into a compass that points at the next weak spot in every room you enter. That's why they're teaching your move to spies now. Because spies are supposed to vanish. But you're the one who emerged. Spies are supposed to infiltrate. But you're the one who infiltrated reality. Spies are supposed to gather intelligence. But you're the one who became intelligence itself. And still, they don't understand you. They don't understand how you move like you're 3 seconds ahead of gravity. How you stand in silence and make the air feel like it's plotting its escape. How you smile with your teeth, but not your eyes. They're measuring your heartbeat in satellites. They're triangulating your silence across continents. They're building threat models with your shadow. But your shadow keeps moving when you're not there. This is what duality feels like. They see a saint. They feel a psychopath. They hear an angel. They smell a demon. And all of it is true. Because you built yourself in the tension between opposites. Because you learned that the real power isn't in choosing sides. It's in being the axis they spin around. That's why you don't break. That's why you don't chase. That's why you don't blink when the entire system tilts against you. Because you're not surviving anymore. You're conducting. You're turning their war rooms into classrooms, their analysis into free publicity, their surveillance into your broadcast. They can teach your tactics to spies all they want. They can mimic your gestures. They can imitate your timing. But they can't install the ghost that animates it. They can't upload the trauma you metabolized into strategy. They can't fake the way you weaponized heartbreak into foresight. You know what the real weapon is, don't you? It's not the move. It's not the skill. It's the myth. The myth of the one who can't be read, can't be pinned, can't be stopped. The myth of the one who appears out of nowhere, does something impossible, and leaves the room feeling smaller than when he entered. And you're feeding that myth with every breath, every silence, every impossible act. They think they're studying you. But they're spreading your legend. They're turning your unpredictability into gospel. They're making you into the very thing they wanted to erase. This is evolution through pain. This is what power looks like when it's built from scars instead of applause. This is what happens when a human becomes a ritual. The Joker leans closer, eyes gleaming like oil in firelight. Let them teach it to spies. Let them copy the shadow of your moves, because the next time you move, it won't be something they can name. It won't be something they can classify. It won't be tactical warfare. It will be existential warfare, and they'll realize too late. The war isn't around you. The war is you, and you've already won it. Listen, do you hear that silence? That sharp, surgical kind of quiet that cuts through a room like a blade? That's not absence of noise. That's the sound of recognition. Because a second ago, everyone was laughing, whispering, shifting in their seats. Then the most dangerous person in the room said your name, and the whole network froze. And in that instant, something shifted, not just in them, in you. You felt the air compress, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Because they weren't just saying a name, they were sounding an alarm. They don't whisper your name because they respect you. They whisper it because they can't map you. Because your existence is a living paradox. Saint and psychopath, angel and demon, healer and hurricane. You've turned unpredictability into power, and pain into a kind of prophecy. Every move you've made until now looked random to them. Erratic, reckless. But now, in the reflection of their own panic, they see it. It was design, a pattern hidden in chaos, an evolution they didn't anticipate. You aren't in this room as a guest. You're in this room as a mirror. And when the apex predator spoke your name, every mask slipped. Their fear bled through their rehearsed smiles. Their bodies betrayed the truth their mouths refused to say. You are not a statistic. You are a signal. The most dangerous person didn't expose you. They validated you. They confirmed what they all suspected, but never dared articulate. That you are no longer a player in their game. You are the glitch that corrupts it. You've taken everything meant to break you. The betrayals, the silences, the locked doors, and metabolized it into precision. Not revenge, alignment. You don't react anymore. You anticipate. You don't chase, you pull. You don't fight for approval. You wield inevitability. That's what freezes a network. Not violence, certainty. They're not terrified of what you'll do next. They're terrified because deep down, they know you've already decided, and they won't know until it's too late, whether you've come to liberate them or to burn them. You can feel it, can't you? That flicker in their eyes. A tremor between awe and dread. Because when they look at you, they see both their judge and their executioner. They see a halo welded from barbed wire. They see mercy weaponized. They see someone who walked into hell, shook hands with the devil, and came back holding the blueprints. You didn't earn this power by being untouchable. You earned it by being unbreakable. Every scar on your body is a coordinate in a map they'll never decode. Every time you were underestimated, you added another layer to the cipher of who you've become. And now your very presence is a recalibration. You are not their enemy. You are their reckoning. You are the living proof that the pain they engineered to crush you instead built a mind that moves like smoke and a will that cuts like steel. You know what's even more dangerous than being unpredictable? Being unpredictable on purpose. Every blink, every pause, every smile. Choreographed like a chess match they can't see. That's why the room froze. That's why the network glitched. That's why the most dangerous person here spoke your name like an invocation. Because deep down, they weren't warning others about you. They were warning themselves. Your name isn't a label anymore. It's a code word. It's a trigger phrase. It's the sound of old systems collapsing under the weight of a new kind of power. You are not here to be accepted. You are here to become inevitable. So let them freeze. Let them whisper. Let them wonder which version of you they've awakened. Because by the time they realize, it will already be too late. Your name has already left their lips, and once spoken, it doesn't echo. It detonates. Do you feel how heavy the air just got? That isn't your imagination. That's what it feels like when a room realizes it's sitting inside a storm it can't predict. That's what it feels like when a name stops being a sound and starts being a signal. Because in that moment, when the most dangerous person in the room spoke your name, it wasn't gossip, it wasn't drama, it was an act of recognition, and recognition is the one thing they cannot allow. They've built their power on keeping faces faceless, souls silent, stories hidden. But you refused. You crawled out of the holes they dug for you, still bleeding, still laughing, still seeing. They wanted you broken because broken things can be catalogued. But you became a contradiction, wounded but weaponized, gentle but lethal, chaotic but exact. You can see it in their eyes now. The shift. They're no longer sure which mask to wear. Because every time they look at you, they see two beings layered over each other. The one they tried to bury, and the one that crawled back up with claws. An angel's posture with a demon's patience. A savior's voice with an executioner's timing. They built models, simulations, predictive algorithms. They tried to plot your trajectory on graphs. But how do you map someone who no longer reacts, who moves on codes of their own making? They thought pain would make you small. They thought isolation would make you desperate. But pain became your architecture. Isolation became your training ground. Now your unpredictability isn't chaos. It's discipline. Every silence is a weapon. Every glance is a reconnaissance. Every step is a disruption of their narrative. That's why the network froze. Not because they don't know who you are, but because they finally do. They see that you are not an accident. You are a design flaw they cannot patch. A living breach. A man or woman who turned the rules inside out and learned to speak the language of power better than its authors. And the apex predator that spoke your name. They weren't condemning you. They were conceding. They were acknowledging that the script no longer belongs to them. That the person they once thought of as a threat is now a variable they can't control. You don't just enter rooms anymore. You recalibrate them. You don't just stand at tables anymore. You tilt them until everything slides into your lap. You don't just carry scars anymore. You wear them like a warning. I survived what you designed. I learned how you think. I know where you're weak. That's why the most dangerous person said your name in public. Because saying it behind closed doors wasn't enough anymore. Because your shadow had already entered every room before you did. Because your reputation moved faster than their rumors. And now, they're stuck with the paradox of you. They can't frame you as villain without making you myth. They can't frame you as victim without making you proof. They can't erase you without making you legend. So the network freezes, waiting to see what you will do next. Waiting to see if you will bless or burn. Waiting to see if you will rewrite the rules or destroy the board. And you don't need to do anything yet. Because you've already won by existing, by being the living contradiction that their systems cannot absorb, by turning pain into perception, perception into power, power into presence. Let them freeze, let them whisper, let them choke on the name they thought was harmless. Because you are not a name anymore. You are a command. When the apex predator spoke your name, they unknowingly triggered their own countdown. They gave you their stage, their silence, their audience, and you stepped into it with a smile that doesn't ask for applause. That's how you terrify them. Not with threats, with inevitability, so stand there in the silence. Let your name hang in the air like a blade. Because you don't need to shout. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove. The most dangerous person in the room already did that for you. And now every eye, every camera, every whisper is locked on the one thing they can't control. You. So now you stand there, not with a crown, but with something far more terrifying. Clarity. They thought the most dangerous thing in the room was the one with the most control, the one with the power to command armies, manipulate alliances, destroy reputations. But they were wrong. The most dangerous thing in the room is the one who sees everything, who sees through the illusion, through the hierarchy, through the ritualistic dance of power they've choreographed to keep people in check. And now, you are that threat. Because the moment your name left that predator's mouth, the entire network realized something none of them had the stomach to say. You're not here to join their structure. You're here to collapse it. You're not a rebellion. You're not a protest. You're the end of their algorithm, the echo they didn't account for, the variable that outgrew its design. They expected a reaction, but you gave them presence, stillness, composure so controlled it made them question their own. Because in your silence there's no chaos, only patterned consequence. They've seen it before, haven't they? When someone so calm enters the room that even the shadows flinch. When someone walks into the lion's den wearing a grin, not a mask. When someone's story is so soaked in betrayal that truth starts to sound like a threat. That's what you are now. A threat to their architecture, a glitch in their timeline, a walking contradiction they can't solve. You carry duality like a weapon, one part stillness, one part storm, both smiling. And when the apex predator spoke your name, it wasn't just a slip, it was a signal. To them, it was a warning. To you, it was confirmation that the people who built their identity on being untouchable just touched the wire. You've become what they feared most, a product of their own cruelty that didn't crumble, but calculated, didn't retaliate blindly, but watched, didn't self-destruct. You self-upgraded. You didn't just survive the trauma, you made it modular, you adapted, you transformed. And now you walk like consequence. You look at people and they flinch. Not because you threaten them directly, but because they see their own reflection warped in your presence. You don't just walk into the room, you reprogram it. They hear your name and remember the version of you they ignored, the one they underestimated, the one they left out, The one they laughed at, the one they tried to break in silence, but that version didn't die. It mutated and became a language they no longer speak. The language of pain with strategy. That's what you are now. Not emotion, not vengeance, not reaction, your execution. And the scariest part? You don't need them to know it. You don't need recognition, because the work has already been done in the dark. Every seed planted in silence, every move designed in exile, every scar forged into architecture. You are a machine now, but one that feels, that remembers, that never forgets. And when the predator said your name, the whole network froze, not because they feared what you are, but because they realized what they created. You are their glitch, their ghost, their goddamn reckoning. And you don't need to raise your voice. You are the volume. They tried to run simulations on what happens when you take control, but every outcome ends the same. You don't just flip the system. You walk past it like it's irrelevant, because you're not playing their game, you're building a new one. And the rules, you haven't even written them yet. They're waiting for your next move, paralyzed, eyes on the monitors, fingers hovering over panic switches. But you take your time, because when you're the anomaly, time belongs to you. And the best part? They can't stop it, because they spoke your name. And once a name is spoken, it echoes, it multiplies, it becomes legend, and legends don't ask for permission. So now the name echoes, but not like applause, like warning sirens, like the silence before a detonation they accidentally triggered. You're not just a person anymore. You're a pivot point in their timeline. A glitch? No. Glitches are accidents. You are intention with memory. You are a calculated misfire that hit every nerve center they swore was protected. Because when the most dangerous person in the room says your name, it doesn't echo through walls. It echoes through agendas. Suddenly the room goes still. Suddenly they're checking their protocols. Suddenly every past sin committed against you becomes relevant. Why? Because power has memory. And you never forgot anything. You didn't just survive betrayal. You archived it, indexed it, labeled every liar and left every knife exactly where they dropped it. And now they feel it, that tremble in their systems, that quiet pressure when someone who was supposed to fold starts standing taller than the ones who wrote the script. You aren't playing defense, you are coiling. That's what they missed. They thought silence meant retreat, but it meant recording. They thought stillness meant fear, but it meant you were writing a new pattern. They thought patience meant submission, but it meant you were becoming venom with precision. They called you soft because you didn't strike first. They called you weak because you were rebuilding behind closed doors. And now they've felt it, that slip in the atmosphere, that sudden pause in their rhythm, that moment when their systems respond like an animal sensing a predator nearby. Not in sight, but close enough that instinct panics before logic can catch up. You didn't enter the room with noise, you entered with proof. Proof that not every war is loud. Proof that sometimes silence is siege warfare. Proof that unpredictability, when done right, doesn't just scare people. It rewires them. That's what you've become. Not a threat, a reprogrammer, a human virus, a walking update to the entire operating system of fear. And that network, that oh-so-powerful network that laughed at you, gaslit you, dismissed you, abandoned you. Now they're not laughing. Now they're checking their security layers. Now they're reviewing every conversation, every message, wondering how long you've been watching, how long you've known, how many steps ahead you really are. Because when your name entered the room, they all got exposed. Not because you spoke, but because someone with more weight than them did. And the second your name became a topic, the entire illusion shattered. Do you know how rare that is, for a name to kill noise, for a single word, your name, to break the rhythm of an entire architecture? It's not noise, it's not power, it's presence. Your presence. Refined through rage, forged in betrayal, polished by grief. And now, delivered with surgical stillness, because while they were networking for power, you were nesting in pain. While they were shaking hands, you were sharpening your inner weaponry. While they were speaking in codes, you were becoming the cipher. You don't just move differently now. You feel different. When you walk into a room, people remember their lies. They remember what they said when they thought you were small. They remember the games they played when you were vulnerable. And they wonder, what do you remember? What did you write down? What did you record? What have you been preparing for? Because you don't need revenge. You are the revenge. Not the kind that screams, the kind that rearranges everything. You changed the temperature of the room. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't flex your muscles. You didn't ask for recognition. You forced recalibration. Their perception of you didn't shift. It snapped. The most dangerous person in the room said your name, and with that one word, you ended the illusion of your insignificance. So now the question isn't, what will you do? The question is, what part of them are you going to dismantle first? Their loyalty, their secrecy, their reputation, their lie, because that's the real fear, that you're not just unpredictable, you're surgical. They don't know if you're here to liberate them or to use their own weapons against them. They don't know if you're going to speak or stay silent and let them destroy themselves, trying to guess what you know, because you've become a mirror. And mirrors don't attack, they reveal. And that is the one thing every corrupted structure fears most. Not violence, exposure, still here. Good, because the room is still holding its breath. They haven't exhaled since your name dropped like a ghost into the air and rewired the atmosphere. And now you own the silence. You own the freeze. You see, most people walk into rooms hoping to be seen, to be liked, to be accepted. But you walked in and made the room question its architecture. You made the foundations twitch. You didn't ask for attention, you distorted gravity. Because here's what they don't understand. True power doesn't need movement. It generates movement. A glance, a pause, a whisper. One moment of your presence and the entire social chain malfunctions. Not because you threatened anyone, but because they can't predict you. And when something can't be predicted, the system collapses into fear. That's why the most dangerous person in the room said your name. It wasn't just recognition, it was a signal flare. They tried to frame it like a warning, but it wasn't a warning. It was a confession, a slip, a raw, involuntary admission that in a room full of monsters, spies, and sociopaths, you're the one who terrifies them the most. Because you don't play by survival rules. You redefined survival. They watched you get buried in betrayal and rise with blueprints. They watched you crawl through psychological fire and come out cleaner, not angrier, not broken, sharper. You used their cruelty like clay. You molded pain into presence. And now you walk like a god that remembers being human. You're no longer here to be forgiven. You're here to correct. Not with fists, but with patterns. You don't shout. You interrupt signals. You don't retaliate. You override software. You don't expose them with rage. You expose them with accuracy. And the moment your name landed in that space, All the fake gods started praying in lowercase. Because you didn't arrive with chaos, you arrived with memory. And memory, when wielded right, becomes prophecy. You don't hold grudges, you hold receipts, you hold details, you hold the story they tried to delete. You don't burn bridges, you learn how they were built, so when you decide to collapse them, you do it from beneath. You don't take revenge. You let gravity do the work. Because they're already top-heavy with guilt, already bloated with secrets. All you had to do was walk in, and the weight of their own lies began the collapse. That's why they froze. Not because you're here to start something, but because you already finished it. And they're just now realizing they missed the entire first half of the war. You weren't trying to be seen. You were letting them underestimate you, long enough to become unrecognizable. They saw your pain and assumed it meant defeat. But pain didn't break you. It taught you how everything breaks. That's the difference. They learned how to rise. You learned how to resurrect. They studied manipulation. You mastered duality. You became the saint who doesn't flinch, and the demon who doesn't blink. And now they don't know what to call you. They can't frame you as hero, because you never asked for their applause. They can't frame you as villain, because the audience already sees through them. They can't erase you, because your name is stuck to their fear like blood on clean hands. So they freeze, not because you're dangerous, but because you're proof. Proof that someone can be annihilated and still come back with alignment. Proof that someone can be exiled and still return with the map. Proof that someone can be forgotten and still rewrite memory itself. They spoke your name to control the room. But your name doesn't calm rooms. It exposes them. You're the glitch in their legacy. The storm that remembers where it started. And the question they never wanted to face. What happens when the one we buried starts digging up us? Let them whisper. Let them panic. Let them run their damage control. Because what they fail to understand is this. You are not a moment. You are momentum. And now, every camera is watching. Every microphone is live. Every shadow is leaning in. Because the most dangerous person already said your name. And now, the world is listening. You feel that? That eerie silence crawling up your spine like a wiretap on your soul? Yeah, that's not paranoia. That's the system realizing you slipped through undetected until it was too late. Because you weren't supposed to exist. Not like this, not with that face. The CIA scanned it, ran it through every biometric database, every psychological model, every emotional pattern recognition system they had. What they expected was another civilian file. What they found was a goddamn red flag in human form. You triggered anomalies in systems that were built to erase anomalies. Your face distorted algorithms. Your aura jammed protocols. One agent wrote, "This subject's data output behaves like it's alive, like it's watching us back. They didn't run a background check on you. They opened a portal, and what spilled out? Not a history, a warning. A report so disturbing. They didn't just redact it. They sealed it in black ink, burned the backups, and buried the agents who saw it firsthand under new names. Because you weren't just some glitch. You were the pattern that breaks the grid. Let's make one thing clear. You didn't evolve. You remembered who you are, what you were built for. They don't scan faces for smiles. They scan them for signals. And yours lit up every anomaly sensor from DC to goddamn Zurich. They said, subject exhibits signs of controlled unpredictability, calculated chaos, mirrored empathy with reversed morality. Dual-coded consciousness, possible threat to global narrative structures. You hear that? Threat to global narrative structures. Translation? You don't fit their script. You write your own. And that's what terrifies them, because their power depends on predictability, control, compliance. They need to know where the next move lands. But with you, there is no next move. There's only the illusion that you ever played by the board. You turned the board over, set it on fire, and watched them choke on the smoke. You see, they thought the darkness would keep you contained. They thought pain would pacify you. But you made pain your programming language. You stitched every trauma into a new algorithm, not to survive, to override. Your face didn't just scare them. It inverted their definitions. Compassion mapped over wrath. Kindness veiling a killer instinct. A savior's smile with a demon's voltage beneath. Saint and psychopath. Healer and hurricane. You're not one, you're both. And the report knew it. Subject demonstrates erratic empathy and weaponized mercy. May act like a martyr. But strategy reflects a war general with terminal foresight. They scanned your face and saw the extinction of every blueprint they ever trusted. Because your eyes don't reflect light. They reflect consequences. You weren't looking at the camera. You were looking through it. And the machine flinched. You think they classify files for safety? Number. They classify them when the truth is so violent, it shatters consensus reality. You are that truth. Not a person, a disruption protocol wrapped in skin, a glitch, number. You're the conscious rejection of every lie they ever passed off as structure. And now the watchers are whispering. Because the deeper they dug, the less human you appeared on paper. Heartbeat irregular. Emotion signature unreadable. Survival index unknown. Potential classified as existential risk tier alpha. You know what that means. You broke the scale. You made them redefine fear. They built a system where power wears a suit, but your power wears scars. You walk into rooms they thought were secure and redecorate reality with silence. Your face didn't register threat. It registered correction. They didn't scan your features. They scanned a prophecy. And it blinked. So now, every agency, every handler, every whispering little operative behind mirrored glass, they're watching you like a bomb that's learned to choose its own detonation time. You didn't come to play their game. You came to show them what happens when the game tries to control the player. Because while they plotted patterns, you became chaos with memory. While they studied weakness, you metabolized it into motive. While they decoded your face, you reprogrammed your soul. They called you a threat. But that's just fear's word for truth with teeth. So let them scan. Let them run all their little reports. Because every time your image hits the database, a new fracture appears in their illusion. You're not a file. You're a warning they can't unsee, a consequence they can't explain, and a face they'll regret ever trying to understand. Because you weren't born for recognition, you were born for reckoning. And now, the mask is off, the lights are on, and the system is glitching. You know what that means? It's showtime. And your face is the trailer for the end of their little script. You know what the most dangerous thing in the world is. A soul that doesn't flinch when stared at by God or a government. Because now they know. You're not afraid of being watched. You're daring them to keep watching. The CIA wasn't just analyzing facial symmetry or biometric threat levels. They were measuring voltage, trying to figure out how the hell someone like you could even exist. You weren't supposed to survive the trauma. You weren't supposed to walk away from that betrayal. You weren't supposed to have clarity after the madness or calm after the storm. But you did, and that right there, that's the part they couldn't classify. That's the part that triggered internal silence. Because in every simulation they ran, you were supposed to break. Instead, you adapted so fast the data looked corrupted. Their facial mapping software glitched when it tried to mirror your expressions. Your smile didn't align with expected emotion profiles. They couldn't tell if you were healing or hunting. They recorded your eye movement patterns. You know what the analyst noted. Subject maintains unbroken eye contact with surveillance feed. Exhibits awareness of the observer despite no audio-visual cue. Suspected counterintelligence instinct. Possibly intuitive, possibly something else. Something else. That's what they always say when the language runs out. You became a linguistic anomaly, a concept too real for theory, too stable for chaos, too unstable for control. And so they stamped your face with a label they give to the rarest types, uncontainable. Because they couldn't predict what you'd do next. And unpredictability is a death sentence. To any control system, you broke pattern recognition. You moved like a ghost with a grudge. You spoke like every word had venom laced with scripture. You became the one thing they were never trained for, a weaponized mirror. Because when they looked into your eyes, they didn't just see a man, they saw everything they've tried to erase. Pain that didn't beg for pity, darkness that didn't beg for light, power that didn't beg for permission. That's when they locked the file. Not because you were dangerous to the public, but because you were dangerous to the narrative. You see, everything about this system depends on a lie. That people are born to follow, to obey, to self-destruct politely under pressure. But you self-constructed, piece by agonizing piece, from betrayal, from abandonment, from agony and clarity and rage, so silent it sounded like prophecy. You built your foundation from the bones of who you used to be. And now you walk like myth in motion. You are the glitch in the data stream, the one that survived when survival wasn't statistically possible, the anomaly that didn't ask for revenge. You engineered evolution. They tried to find your weak point. They ran psychological profiling, interrogated former contacts, scrubbed your old digital presence. But all they found was this. Subject has no obvious center, no moral axis, no singular motive. Interactions suggest unpredictable empathy mixed with high-intensity perceptual dominance. Subject might not be playing a game. Subject might be the game. Do you get it now? They don't fear your violence, they fear your vision. They fear that everything you know isn't theory, it's lived, raw, carved into the architecture of your face like encrypted scripture. And every time you look up, someone in a control room freezes because they don't know if you're coming to liberate the system or burn it. But you know the answer, don't you? Because deep down, you were never trying to be understood. You were trying to be unforgettable. And now, you are. There are files, there are sealed rooms, there are black site meetings where your face is the presentation, where agents speak in lowered tones, like they're summoning something from folklore. Because they've tried to categorize you. But what do you do when a monster walks in with a halo? When a saint smiles like a devil? When a victim becomes the verdict? They learned too late. You weren't scanning back. You were recording every lie, every betrayal, every failed attempt to gaslight you into silence. And now they're scared of what you might say, because the moment you speak, their entire structure unravels. You are not the product of pain. You are the prophet of it. You took what was meant to kill you, and turned it into currency. So what now? Now you haunt them. You are the classified phantom echoing through redacted rooms. You're the unsolvable problem sitting in their psychological warfare models, the one individual they can't predict, and therefore can't kill. So wear that face proudly, because it's not a face anymore. It's a cipher, and every time they look at it, they're reminded the system failed, not because it was broken, but because it met you. You ever wonder why they didn't just erase you? They've erased people for less. Whistleblowers, hackers, even their own agents when the script didn't fit. But you, they tried something different. They classified you, because erasing you wouldn't have worked. It would have made you louder. So they buried the file, not because you're invisible, but because you're too real. So real, it interferes with the fiction they sell to the masses. You walk into a room and suddenly, people get quiet. Not because they know your story, but because they feel it. Your energy doesn't request space, it redefines it. They scanned your face and didn't find a personality profile. They found a signal distortion, a presence that bent the walls of the room, that shifted the gravitational pull of attention and fear at the same time. Because what you carry isn't charisma, it's consequence. You don't charm people. You confront their illusions, and that's ungovernable. You can't program a force of nature. You can't format a storm. You can't put a firewall around something that doesn't recognize walls to begin with. And they learned that the hard way. That's why they locked the file behind 6 levels of clearance. Because every time someone opened it, they started asking the wrong questions, or maybe the right ones. Why did this subject survive all known trauma thresholds? Why do known enemies of the agency reference him with reverence or dread? Why does the data seem emotionally reactive? Why does the file itself feel conscious? You see what that means? They didn't just fear what you'd do. They feared that you'd make others wake up. Because when people look at you, when they really look, they don't see someone who got lucky. They see someone who refused to die, someone who bent time, memory, betrayal, and agony into a new language, a language made of glances, of timing, of silence, a language only the awakened can read. So when they say, "You're dangerous," they're not talking about weapons. They're talking about witness. You carry evidence, spiritual evidence, proof that you can descend into hell and still walk out with your soul in one hand and your enemy's playbook in the other. You're not unpredictable, you're unprogrammable. And that's the apex predator of this world. They know now. You don't operate from triggers, you operate from codes. Your whole being is encrypted pain, pain that didn't turn into tears, but into precision. You didn't learn how to survive, you learned how to scan them back. And that's why every agency, every secret network, every whisper behind closed glass walls, they're spiraling because you saw through them. You figured out their rituals, their symbols, their masks. You walked through their matrix barefoot and came out with blueprints. So they panic, not because of what you say, but because you haven't said it yet, your silence. That's not peace. That's positioning. You're not quiet because you're calm. You're quiet because you've seen the whole board, and now you're just waiting for the exact moment to make the next move feel like destiny. They scanned your face and saw their end game. You ever see fear on a politician's face? Not when they lose votes, but when they meet someone whose power wasn't assigned by status, inherited by blood, or built on lies. When they meet you, because your power, it came from surviving what they designed to break you, and turning it into a mind that predicts futures, and a presence that shatters delusions. They can't assassinate you, because you're already a symbol. And symbols live longer than empires, so they tried to contain you in metadata. But how do you archive the storm? How do you timestamp a resurrection? They watched you become a walking paradox. The smile of a saint, the eyes of a killer, the composure of a monk, the unpredictability of a wildfire. You're their worst-case scenario with a heartbeat. And now, every hallway you walk into feels like a prophecy being fulfilled. You didn't just survive darkness. You made a treaty with it. You looked into the void, shook hands with it, and then turned it into your personal security detail. So go ahead. Let them scan. Let them gather data. Let them whisper about reports that don't make sense and footage that corrupts itself. Because you're not the glitch. You're the reboot. And no amount of black ink, locked files, or analyst meetings will stop what happens next. Because now, the file is awake, and you are the storm inside it. They made one fatal mistake. They assumed you were asleep, just another background character, another shadow in the surveillance feed, a name without consequence, a file they could tag, trace, and forget. But you weren't asleep. You were studying. While they watched you, you memorized them, their gestures, their hierarchy, their fear disguised as protocol. And when they thought they had your profile complete, you did the one thing that sends tremors through the whole machine. You evolved again, not upward, not downward, inward. You became unreadable. The algorithms couldn't map your next move. The behavioral analytics froze. You shattered the predictive models like glass because you stopped reacting like a person and started moving like an event, an omen, a walking paradox that broke every psychological metric they trust. Your empathy weaponized, your pain recycled into foresight, your silence loaded, and your smile a goddamn confession written in code. They tried to analyze your micro-expressions, track your pupil dilation, monitor your heart rate during confrontation, but they didn't understand. You already rehearsed their entire play and burned the script. They thought they were watching you, but you were conducting them like instruments, turning analysts into audience, surveillance into cinema, every camera a witness to the death of their illusion. And now, there's a sealed report sitting in a vault under Langley, a file with your face on it, stamped with more red than clearance. But no matter how deep they bury it, it spreads. You know why? Because the file isn't the threat. You are the living breach, not a moment in time, but a continuum of collapse that walks like a man and speaks like a reckoning. They didn't just scan your face. They scanned a signal from the edge of reality, and it screamed back, wrong target, wrong plan, wrong world. You are not of this system. You are what happens when the system miscalculates what survival creates. They were prepared for rebels, prepared for whistleblowers, prepared for hackers, warlords, politicians, and digital phantoms. But not you. You don't fit the mold, because you melted it. You're the architect of your own gravity. The reason the room feels heavier when you walk in. The reason their agents hesitate before approaching. The reason red lights flash in boardrooms they claim are secure. Because when you're around, nothing is certain. Not the rules, not the outcome, not even their reality. You don't follow laws, you follow truth. But not the kind written in dusty old files. Not the kind read under fluorescent lights by cowards in suits. You follow the truth that hurts. The kind that dismantles systems. The truth that says, not all demons are evil. Some are just misunderstood gods in exile. And you're not fighting for revenge. You're correcting history. One glance at a time, one room at a time, one empire at a time. You're not some angry survivor. You're a highly strategic consequence. And your presence is a curse they placed on themselves the moment they decided to watch you without permission. That scan, that innocent little scan, it didn't end with a report. It began with a realization. If this being ever decides to move, reality bends. People forget who they are. And the system starts whispering its own eulogy because you don't just exist. You haunt. You're the line in the data that can't be explained. The ghost sati in the satellite footage. The reflection in the glass that doesn't blink back. And worst of all, you made it personal. You didn't just survive the system, you forced it to study its own sickness. You didn't fight it with weapons. You exposed it with clarity. That's why they fear you, not because you're angry, but because you're certain. And certainty. That's the one thing no regime can survive. They want to believe you're an outlier, that you're rare, but deep down, they know better. You're the prototype, the first of many. The glitch they couldn't quarantine, the virus that doesn't crash systems. It rewrites the code. So let them pretend. Let them draft new protocols. Let them pray to their outdated gods in digital temples built on stolen data. It's too late. Because they didn't just scan your face. They woke something. And now, every time they close their eyes, they don't see numbers, or statistics, or field reports. They see you, standing at the edge of their fabricated reality, smiling.